for normal activity. Then I can start taping the scar itself, the surgical incision site itself. It's roughly, you have granulation begins, pretty heavily. It's right off the bat. In 3 weeks, pretty much, capillaries are stable. But I'm going to let a surgeon tell me when it's time. I'm not going to make that decision. That's not in my scope of practice. I don't have that ability to make those decisions.
My partner up there, she was gonna take that area in because my scar opens a lot easily. I just had to avoid that area.
Yeah. That's the deal. And so, let the surgeon say you can resume normal activity. And that's essentially saying the skin, the underlying tissue, everything's ready to go.
It's been years.
It's still open?
I had a really bad surgeon who is being continuously sued right now.
That can't be
Well, because I
good.
had surgery in 2016, and that surgeon is one of the best surgeons on the West Coast, and that scar was like you can't even see it. And then this surgeon, he weighs about 350, and he told me that he had to use a hammer and all his weight to try to get my bone out and all kinds of stuff. So when they tried it, they said that there was no more skin to pull it back over together. And so now if I bump it, it opens.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
So we don't tape over that.
No, we don't tape over that.
You win the
Yes, I know.
If anybody in here's got something going on, like, I got this, I got that, you win.
Pick up
Right there. Yeah, no, you get that prize. Nobody really wants that prize. Right? There's positive. You always look for the positive. Okay, so, if you're sensitive to salty language,
Get out.
take that stick out of your ass. Alright, so let's say we have an incision, or had an incision, longitudinal incision in her thigh, because we had a surgeon who was tearing a bone out. Okay? And so now her surgeon has told her it's okay that she can now go ahead and resume normal activity. So I know the skin is tolerant. So what I'm trying to do is prevent accumulation of fibrous material, of collagen material in the scar area. The scars can either be drawn in tent, or they can be pulled to the basement membrane and puckered. So what I'm going to do to prevent tenting or puckering is I'm going to draw that skin out. Okay? And the way I do that is basically create a scissor effect on the leg. So here's the incision. I'm going to take, and I do the same kind of thing. What I did was I took this tape and cut it in 8 little pieces, but I cut it first in 2 segments. So we want to use the long part perpendicular to the incision, because that's the stretchy part. Okay, that's the stretchy part. I want to stretch the incision away.
So the long piece.
I got an echoey part here. Hello? Hello? Yes. I'm teasing. Like when you get in the shower, you just gotta sing, right? You just like, God is. The Vegas does too as well. I missed the Rat Pack. All right, so I'm going to start. So here's the incision. I'm just going to start laying down tape, and you can get a little tiny bit of stretch in it because I want to pull. Tried to get out, and they pulled me back in.
So the tape is on either side of the scar, but not on the scar.
Correct.
So
it's just kind of.
And check this out when I get it done. And I do the same kind of thing. I'm tugging, I'm not touching any tape, but I'm giving it a little bit of stretch to it. I want to have a little bit of stretch going on. And I'm leaving spaces the width of the other tape pieces, and there's a reason for that.
And those are the long pieces, right?
Yeah, now this is the long part of the tape. So the stretchiest part of the tape is pulling this way. It's also pulling that way, but. But then I don't want to oppose the tape. I want to intersperse it. So I'm going to do more like a scissor type of
So in between the
application.
two.
So staggered. Okay.
So
Oh,
I'm
you did.
pulling
Yeah,
on
nice.
that incision.
What could you say to describe it?
Zipper it, like maybe kind of like a zipper.
Or staggered.
Yeah.
It looks like a zipper.
Or staggering.
Mhm.
Staggering.
Yeah. Whoops. Staggered. Alternated.
Hmm.
Whatever, homonym works for you. Or synonym, I guess that's more synonym.
So the scar's in the
Homonym
middle
sounded
of
like-
Mhm.
My English teacher's gonna.
The scar goes right through.
Yeah, the scar's going right through here.
So like how close to the, I'm sorry, how close to
Okay.
the scar would you put the tape?
I'm pretty close.
Okay.
It depends on how much granular tissue, how much redness and puffiness I'm seeing. I'm gonna stay off of that.
And how much?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
along
I'm
the
gonna get
edge.
below the edge of the tent or
Oh,
the
okay.
dimple.
Okay.
Okay, so it's it's building, like a keloid builds collagen. But sometimes people's scars will actually be adherent to the fascial layer below the dermis, and it'll pull that skin down. So you get that more of a dimpled effect, or more of a indention effect.
And how effective would this work in terms of like on an older scar? Does it have to be immediately?
How many of you have taken fascial type of techniques to relieve scars? There's a whole different.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So there's actually fascial techniques of actually breaking down old scars.
Oh, okay. But this wouldn't work for an old scar.
No.
Okay,
Because
gotcha.
we're actually dealing with the
it's forming.
cutaneous tissue. If that scar is formed, it wouldn't be a bad idea. Thank you. Thanks so much. It wouldn't be a bad idea to, after you've done your fascial work, to add this in to kind of hold that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So that
Makes
it
sense.
doesn't try to go back.
Yeah,
to
so
what
it doesn't
was.
try
Right.
to build back. But remember, we're dealing with skin. So sometimes you'll be dealing with also subdermal fascial buildups, which is associated with the actual fascia overlying the muscle or overlying the bone, depending on what region of the body you're in. So you're trying to diminish that too. Because they usually, some things are just skin. So if you've had, a surgical dermatologist doing, some kind of reconstruction, something that they're just dealing with skin, then you're dealing with a skin thing. But sometimes your scars are associated with like a C-section or something like that, and they've gone in.
Right.
So you're also dealing with, other layers of tissue that are also scarring. So you're trying to manage that as well. And they're going to have an influence on that whole lymphatic drain, because they're going to create these secondary watersheds. So the body's trying to work work a path around. Think of a river. The older rivers are all meandering and winding. They're just the water's just sort of finding its way around the earth. And the body does the same thing. It's just finding its way around. So if there's an inflammatory, collagenous buildup, it's just going to, let's work around this way. And you create these additional watersheds, and you'll bump up, so they're bumping up against that and flowing around it, which allows that to further build. So you need to break that down so the flow, moves over it as opposed to around it. So we now diminish that effect. You look great.
Shoulders.
Tape girl. All right, any questions about that stuff?